set which are most important. How do you go about ranking each different industry?
So the only industry we looked at was just commercial.
Yeah, I know.
But within
the different...
within commercial, how we rank is actually based on how we collect the data. Because the way we collect the data basically creates gross revenue surfaces. And so it's purely based on economic value in terms of how they're ranked. But then we went through that exercise of saying, okay, can we do this equitably across even those rankings? But based on economic value is how we did it.
Okay. And the other question is, part of our work has been collecting traditional ecological knowledge. And I was just, when you mentioned your ocean map, I would just be interested in seeing how that looks compared to the process that we used. Is it possible to... is it a program or?
Yeah, it's available if you if you go to the EcoTrust Ocean page. There's a page there on Ocean Map, and it's downloadable, and all the methods are there and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would also probably suggest talking with Greg Kem as well. He's the GIS manager at EcoTrust Canada, and he probably has a pretty good sense for both Ocean Map and some of the other ways in which they have at EcoTrust Canada have mapped out traditional uses. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
My name is David Lane. I'm with the T-Buck Suzuki Environmental Foundation, and our membership is based in the commercial fishing sector. And the tools that you've developed, we're going to be using them in the PNCIMA process and with some of our collection of local knowledge of commercial fishermen. But one question I've got is just where it fits in. I really like how you've developed this tool that looks at socioeconomic costs and tries to do that on an equitable fashion. Those are really important principles to us. But I'm looking at the flip side of not just conservation zones, but let's just call them two issues: fisheries protection zones, and whether that's protecting a fishery or protecting a fish stock. It's a different kind of a concept. Or conversely, when you look at habitat types and having representative habitat types where very important spawning and rearing grounds or migration corridors come into play. So on the first one, just as an example of a fisheries protection zone, let's say you had a very crucial area for the crab fishery, and you wanted to protect that from there being some other use, let's say a wind farm, or we could name a few things that would interfere. Or conversely, very important herring spawning area, and you want to protect that from shellfish there's some very major shellfish aquaculture developments being proposed on the BC coast. So does Marxan allow to create some way to protect that and identify it from other human uses?
I would say there's probably two ways in which you'd want to try and address those two things. So if you know that there is like a fishing ground that you want protected no matter what, you can just lock that in. Like if you have supporting data, or even if you didn't have supporting data, you just had this knowledge of we want to leave this area open no matter what, you just lock that area in to basically being the Dungeness crab or whatever fishing zone, and then it basically optimizes and finds zones around that and just makes sure that doesn't disappear. The other way is setting it as a target as well to ensure that it's captured, and that the thing is when you start locking things in, you start putting more constraints on the optimization, and so it's probably worth exploring both options in which of locking it in, but also setting it as a target as well. Like you want to have X amount, 100% or 90% of this fishing ground in a certain zone that doesn't allow any other activity to occur in it, you can do that. Now for this fishery production or habitat, you would just want to set those as targets or as well. As if you had information on where those nursery grounds were at, you would just set those as you need to have X amount of these nursery grounds in a certain type of zone, and just you go through that process of defining it. But you have to have the supporting data in order to so it can go and find those areas.
Good, thanks.
Yeah.
My name's Craig Uthet. I work with the Coastal First Nations and North Coast First Nations, guys like Kyle. I wanted to ask you about the, I guess why you had to go out, or why you did go out and kind of do the ocean use mapping with the commercial fishermen. Mm-hmm. Was there a data gap? Was it a quality issue? Probably both, but also just, I guess, a form of stakeholder engagement. Maybe expand on it a little bit. Sure.
All three of those things. Data gap. So in California, and for the whole West Coast for that matter, at least in the U.S., there isn't a comprehensive data set for commercial and recreational fisheries. There's some fisheries that have logbooks, but those fisheries are like trawl fisheries that don't really occur inside state waters. And then there's just a general, the ones that there is some spatial information, it's quality. Like we've done a study where like we looked at this one data set that was thought to be comprehensive, and the spatial information, basically 80% of it was incorrect, but on the shore side where they were reporting the landing shore was good. And so we basically figured out how we could use that information in addition to mapping it out with the fishermen. And then your last point there is the stakeholder engagement. It's huge. I mean, and I think it's something that like the process doesn't really think about, but like we're in each region that we go into and doing this work, we're kind of like the first line of whatever that goes into the region to collect the data so that the data is ready for the stakeholders when they get into the stakeholder process. And what we do is we go in and we engage in these communities, kind of figure out what's going on in these communities, not only their issues with the process, but other issues. But then also we're capturing what's important to them. And it's been recognized in that process as like their information is the best available scientific information in the process. And it's been validated and accepted in the literature and by the science advisory team and the process. So they basically have said this is the good stuff. And then the stakeholders then, and we stay engaged with those stakeholders throughout the process. We just don't go in and collect the data and then walk away and deliver it to the process and never talk to them again. We kind of stay engaged with them throughout the process to also work with them to help them understand how their data is going to be used in the process. And then as MPAs are being drawn, kind of reporting back to them, seeing if they have any other issue, or, if we miss something or if they have other issues that come up, so they kind of can see the results of their information. Because it's hard to get information, right? I mean, like it's really hard to get that type of information, but if they can see and you can build that trust, right, that their information you collected has been used responsibly and has achieved outcomes that, have somewhat minimized the potential impact. I think things would have been a lot worse if their information was not used at all, and it's kind of hard to make that argument, but like I know some certain examples in California where if they didn't have this information, it would have wiped out, some of the fleets. I was just thinking of two quick follow-up questions. Mm-hmm. One was just sort of timelines and how long that took. And the other one was, you said that the commercial fishermen, it was recognized that the data was the best that could be used. So maybe before that or after you had that information, was it a tough sell to get those people to the table, or were they willing to share right off the bat? So we have had the fortune, I like to think of it as fortunate, we have laws. So there's the Marine Life Protection Act is a law, right? And so basically the argument there, not the argument, but like this, what we go into these communities is like, look, you can either be a part of the mill or preparing the mill or be the mill. And because it's going to happen no matter what. Like they're going to put these MPAs no matter what. And so they're not always receptive to that, but and this kind of feeds into the timeline. So any region that we go into, we spend at least 2 to 3 months just having conversations, sitting in coffee shops, discussing issues, figuring out who the leaders are within the communities, who we need to be talking to, getting them informed about not only our project, but the larger Marine Life Protection Act process or the Territorial Sea process in Oregon. We spend a lot of time doing that, do some formal presentations, try and get the community, as much of the community informed. And then it takes us about 3 months to go out and interview anywhere between